She entered my life like a silent storm, beautiful, refined, and completely forbidden. I used to think morality was a firm line. Until she touched me and everything collapsed. Maya had always felt that something was missing in her marriage. She had married David when they were both young, a whirlwind romance that had led them to a stable, comfortable life. David was successful, well-liked, and an all-around good man. To the outside world, they were the picture of a perfect couple. But behind closed doors, Maya often found herself yearning for something more, something deeper than what her life with David provided. It wasn't that she didn't love him, she did. But the intimacy they once shared seemed to have faded over time. They had both become comfortable in their routines, and the passion that once ignited their relationship had turned into a dull, predictable routine. Maya longed for the spark she had once felt, the connection that made her feel truly alive. Then came Michael. Michael was new to the office where Maya worked as a marketing manager. He was charming, sharp, and effortlessly handsome. His smile was enough to make her heart skip a beat, and his intelligence and wit captivated her. At first, their interactions were innocent, just friendly conversations during work meetings, casual exchanges about their projects. But over time, those conversations became more frequent, more intense, and somehow, Maya found herself looking forward to every moment she spent with him. One afternoon, Michael stayed late to finish a report, and Maya, too, was working late. They ended up in the break room together, chatting over coffee, the office empty and quiet around them. It was during that moment that the barrier between them seemed to dissolve. The way he looked at her, the way his words lingered in the air, it was like an electric current passed between them. Maya tried to resist the pull, but it was impossible. She hadn't felt that kind of excitement in years. That night, after they left the office, Michael asked if she'd like to grab a drink. Maya hesitated, but something inside her told her to say yes. When they met at a nearby bar, the atmosphere between them shifted again. They talked for hours, their laughter and easy conversation flowing as though they had known each other for years. The chemistry between them was undeniable. Maya found herself drawn to him in a way she had never experienced before. As the night ended, Michael walked her to her car. He reached out to touch her arm, and the moment his fingers brushed against her skin, Maya felt a spark ignite deep within her. She could see the same hunger in his eyes, the same longing that mirrored her own. It was then that she realized how much she had been craving something more than what her marriage had given her. As Michael leaned in, his lips brushing against hers, Maya's mind screamed in protest. But her heart and body betrayed her. She kissed him back, her pulse racing as the world seemed to fall away. The kiss was brief but intense, and when it ended, Maya pulled back, her breath shallow, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't believe what had just happened. She was married, she had a family, this wasn't her. She loved David, or at least, she used to. She had never imagined herself in this situation, but Michael wasn't just any man. He had awakened something in her that had been dormant for far too long. The longing, the passion, the excitement, everything she had been missing was right in front of her. "You don't have to say anything," Michael whispered, his voice soft, as if he could sense her internal struggle. "But I had to know if you felt the same." Maya stood there, frozen, the words hanging in the air. She knew she had just crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. But for the first time in years, she felt alive. She felt wanted. She felt seen. "I don't know what this means," Maya said, her voice shaky. "I'm married, Michael. I can't just..." "Shoo," he interrupted gently, taking her hand in his. "I'm not asking for anything more than what you're willing to give." The words echoed in her mind as she drove home that night, her head spinning with emotions she didn't know how to handle. She knew she had to make a choice, but the pull she felt toward Michael was overwhelming. She had never felt so conflicted in her life. In the days that followed, Maya tried to return to her normal life, but everything felt different. Every glance, every smile from Michael seemed to linger, haunting her thoughts. She would find herself replaying their kiss over and over, imagining what might have happened if they had taken things further. The excitement of that brief moment filled her with both guilt and desire. She found herself avoiding David, the man she had once shared everything with. Her heart was no longer in their conversations, her body no longer responded the way it once had when he touched her. She was distant, caught up in the feelings Michael had stirred inside her. David noticed the change. He tried to reach out to her, asking if something was wrong. But Maya was too consumed by her secret. She couldn't tell him. She couldn't betray the man she had built a life with, even though she had already crossed a line that felt impossible to undo, but the temptation grew stronger each day. She began to spend more time with Michael, finding excuses to meet him after work or at lunch. Their bond deepened, and it became clear that their connection was more than just physical. Michael didn't just awaken passion in her, he awakened a part of her that had been missing for years, her sense of self. One afternoon, Michael invited her to dinner at a small, intimate restaurant. They shared a bottle of wine, laughing and talking as if they were the only two people in the world. It was the perfect evening, and Maya couldn't deny that she was falling for him, hard. As the night wore on, the tension between them reached a breaking point. Michael reached out to touch her face, his fingers tracing the lines of her jaw before pulling her into a kiss that was full of longing and desperation. For the first time in years, Maya felt desired, wanted, and alive in a way she hadn't in her marriage. The kiss deepened, their connection undeniable, and Maya knew that this time, there would be no turning back. The affair between Maya and Michael continued in secret, their stolen moments filled with passion and emotional intensity. They both knew that their relationship was forbidden. That the consequences of their actions would be devastating if anyone found out. But every time Maya saw Michael, every time he touched her, the temptation became stronger. She was torn between the life she had with David and the overwhelming desire she felt for Michael. The guilt weighed on her daily. She couldn't look at David without feeling like a fraud, knowing that she was betraying him in the worst possible way. And yet, the pull of her love for Michael was too strong to resist. But as the weeks passed, Maya began to feel the pressure mounting. She was living a double life, and the lies were starting to catch up with her. Every secret meeting, every stolen kiss, made her feel like she was slowly losing herself. She couldn't keep living like this, torn between two worlds, two loves. The breaking point came one night, when Maya found herself in Michael's arms, her lips on his, her body aching for him. As they kissed, she felt the weight of her actions, the guilt, the shame, and the truth that she could never go back. Michael pulled back, his forehead resting against hers, his breath ragged. "I can't keep doing this to you, Maya," he said quietly. "I can't keep being the other man. You deserve so much more than this." Tears welled in Maya's eyes as she realized the truth. She couldn't keep this secret from David forever. She couldn't keep lying to herself or to the man who loved her. Her heart was torn between two worlds. But the reality was that she could never have both. She pulled away, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need to make a choice, Michael. I can't keep doing this." The days passed in a blur of contradictions. Maya would wake up in the morning next to David, feeling the weight of his warm body beside hers, but her thoughts would immediately wander to Michael. At work, she would smile through her conversations with her colleagues, keeping her life together on the outside, while internally, her mind was consumed by the hidden relationship that was tearing her apart. Michael had become her obsession. Every interaction with him, every glance, every smile, sent waves of electricity through her. He made her feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. When he touched her, it was as if every fiber of her being came alive with longing. She would find herself replaying their secret moments, the kiss that had started it all, the way his hands would gently trace the curve of her back when they were alone. But as her desire for him deepened, so did her guilt. She could no longer look at David without feeling like a traitor. Every touch, every whispered, "I love you," now felt hollow, as though they were words spoken out of habit, not genuine emotion. She was trapped between two worlds, and she could feel herself being pulled apart by the weight of her actions. The guilt began to eat away at her. She had never imagined she would be in this situation. She had promised herself she would never hurt anyone, especially David, the man who had given her everything. But Michael's presence in her life had blurred every boundary she had once held dear. Maya was no longer just conflicted, she was consumed by an all-encompassing fear. Her moments with Michael, once exciting and freeing, were now filled with anxiety. Each time they met, it was as if they were walking on a razor's edge. The fear of being discovered, of the affair being exposed, haunted every moment they shared. And yet, despite the danger, Maya couldn't pull away. She was captivated by him, by the raw passion they shared, something she hadn't felt in her marriage with David for years. One evening, after another passionate, secret rendezvous, Maya sat in her car, her hands gripping the steering wheel as she stared blankly at the road ahead. She had just kissed Michael goodbye. Their lips lingering for a moment too long, as if neither of them wanted to let go. But deep down, Maya knew that no matter how much they both wanted this love that was forbidden, exhilarating, and all-consuming, there would be consequences. She couldn't escape that truth forever. Her phone buzzed, breaking her thoughts. It was a text from Michael. "I can't stop thinking about you. Every time I leave, it feels like a part of me is left behind. I can't keep doing this in the shadows. But I need you to be honest with me. What are we doing, Maya?" Maya read the message over and over, the words echoing in her mind. What were they doing? She had never allowed herself to face that question before. But now, it was impossible to ignore. Their love had started as something pure, something that felt right in the moment, but now it was tainted by secrecy, by betrayal. The question hung in the air, could they continue like this? Could she live with herself, knowing she was betraying the man who loved her? She typed a reply, her hands trembling, "I don't know. I don't know what to do anymore. But I can't let you go either." Maya pressed send, feeling the weight of the words settle in her chest. She had just confessed to Michael what she had been afraid to admit even to herself. She was in too deep. She loved him. But was it enough to risk everything? The days that followed were filled with an overwhelming sense of impending doom. Maya avoided David as much as she could. She felt guilty every time he looked at her, every time he tried to engage with her. It was becoming harder to hide her emotions. The lies were wearing her down, and she knew it was only a matter of time before the truth came to light. She couldn't keep this up. Every conversation with David felt strained. Every interaction with Michael was a reminder of how much they had to lose. It was as if Maya was living two separate lives, both of them pulling her in different directions. One afternoon, Maya and Michael met for lunch at a quiet cafe. The mood between them was different this time. He seemed restless, and she felt an overwhelming sense of dread in her chest. It wasn't like their usual meetings, filled with passion and stolen moments. This time, the weight of their situation hung over them both. "I've been thinking a lot, Maya," Michael said, his voice low, as he stirred his coffee absent-mindedly. "I can't keep doing this. I can't keep being the other man in your life." Maya's heart sank. She knew exactly what he meant. He was asking for more, asking for something she couldn't give him. She couldn't give up everything for him, not when she had so much to lose. "I know," she whispered, her throat tight. "But I can't let go of you either. This love we have, it's too much to ignore. But I don't know how to make it work. I can't just throw my life away." Michael's eyes softened, but there was a trace of sadness in them that made Maya's heart ache. "I don't want to destroy your life, Maya. But I also don't want to be your secret anymore. I can't live like this." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Maya knew what he was asking. He was asking for her to choose. But she couldn't choose. Not yet. She wasn't ready to face the consequences of her choices. "I'm not ready," she said quietly, her voice breaking. "I'm not ready to lose everything. But I can't lose you either." They sat in silence, the weight of their unspoken truths settling between them. Maya realized, in that moment, that no matter what she chose, there would be consequences. She couldn't have both worlds. She couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay, the days after their conversation were filled with dread and uncertainty. Maya knew she couldn't keep living in this limbo, but the fear of losing Michael was too much to bear. She couldn't imagine a life without him, without the passion and connection they shared. One evening, as she sat in the living room with David, pretending to be the wife she used to be, Maya knew that she had to make a choice. She could feel the weight of her decisions pulling her in two different directions, but the reality was that she couldn't continue living a lie. David looked at her from across the room, his eyes searching hers as if he could see right through her. "Sarah," he said gently. "What's going on? You've been so distant lately. I know something's wrong. You don't have to tell me everything, but I need to know if you're still with me." Maya felt her heart drop in her chest. She had to make her choice now. There was no going back. Maya stood at the crossroads, her heart heavy with the knowledge of what she had to do. She could feel the weight of the choice pressing down on her. She was about to destroy everything she had built, but the truth had to be faced. She had to choose between the love she had for Michael and the life she had with David. Her phone buzzed again. It was Michael. "I can't wait forever, Maya. I need to know. Are you with me or with him?" She closed her eyes, her mind spinning. The weight of her decision hit her harder than ever. She could feel the consequences of both choices, the loss of Michael or the betrayal of David. Maya felt her breath catch in her throat as she stood there, her phone still in her hand, the weight of Michael's words pressing heavily on her chest. She had known this moment was coming, knew that the time would come when she would have to choose between the man she had built a life with, David, and the passionate, forbidden connection she had with Michael. But now that the moment was here, she felt paralyzed, unable to make a decision that could change everything, as she stood in the stillness of the room. The weight of her two worlds crashing together, she realized how much she had been avoiding the truth. The truth that, no matter how much she tried to ignore it, she had fallen in love with Michael. The love she had with David had slowly faded over the years, and what they shared now was just a shadow of what it once was. David was a good man, the man she had built a life with, but her heart was no longer fully his. The love she had for Michael was a fire, intense, consuming, and undeniable. Every stolen moment with him, every touch, every word, had awakened something in her that she had buried long ago. She had told herself that it was just a fleeting connection, that it was just something temporary to fill the emptiness she had been feeling in her marriage. But now, she couldn't lie to herself anymore. It was more than that, but then there was David. The man who had been with her through thick and thin. The man who had built a life with her, who had given her a family and security. He didn't deserve this, didn't deserve to be betrayed by the woman he loved. The guilt she felt was suffocating, and the weight of her love for Michael was pushing her to make a choice she wasn't sure she was ready to make. Maya couldn't stay in that moment of indecision forever. The longer she avoided making a decision, the more it ate away at her. Her mind raced with the possibilities of both choices, the life she had with David and the life she could have with Michael. She couldn't escape the truth any longer. The affair had escalated into something far more than just a fleeting attraction. It had become something real, something she couldn't ignore, and yet, every part of her screamed that she couldn't tear apart her life with David for it. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Maya knew what she had to do. She had to tell David the truth. She couldn't keep living in this lie. She had already crossed too many lines, and now it was time to face the consequences. Maya waited until the evening when David returned from work. He seemed even more distant today, his usual smiles absent, his face tense. As soon as he stepped into the house, she knew that she couldn't keep this from him any longer. "David," Maya called softly from the kitchen as she prepared dinner. She had already decided that this conversation could not be avoided. She had to face it head-on, no matter how much it hurt. David walked into the kitchen, his eyes tired. "What's going on, Maya? You've been distant for weeks now, and I don't know what's happening between us. You're not the same." Maya looked up from the cutting board, meeting his eyes. Her heart twisted in her chest. He deserved so much more than this. But she had to be honest. "I've been keeping something from you, David," she said quietly, her voice shaky. And I can't keep pretending anymore. The truth is, I've fallen in love with someone else. David froze, his face draining of color. He stepped back, as though the words had physically struck him. What? He asked, his voice barely audible. What do you mean? Maya took a deep breath, her heart breaking as she saw the pain in his eyes. I'm so sorry, David. This isn't easy for me to say. But I've been seeing someone else. Someone I've developed feelings for. And I can't hide it anymore. The words hung in the air, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Maya felt the full weight of what she had just confessed, and it felt as though the ground beneath her was slipping away. She had betrayed the man who had trusted her, the man she had shared years of her life with. And now, there was no turning back. David's face twisted in disbelief. How long? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Months, Maya admitted, her voice breaking. It started innocently, but it became more. I never wanted to hurt you, David, but I've fallen in love with him. David took another step back, his face now contorted with hurt. He looked at her as though seeing her for the first time. The woman he had shared a life with. The woman he had trusted, was now a stranger. The hurt in his eyes was like a knife to Maya's heart. I don't know what to say, he muttered, shaking his head in disbelief. You've betrayed me, Maya. After everything we've been through, you've thrown it all away for some affair. Maya closed her eyes, the guilt overwhelming her. I didn't mean for this to happen. But I can't lie to you anymore. I love him, David. And I can't keep pretending I don't. The silence that followed was deafening. The weight of their shared years together, the life they had built, was now crumbling before her. Maya could see the love in David's eyes slowly turn to something colder. He wasn't angry, not yet. But she could see that the trust they once shared was gone. And once it was gone, there was no getting it back. I need time to think, David said after a long pause. His voice was flat, devoid of the emotion he had once shown. I don't know how to fix this, Maya. I don't even know if I want to anymore. The following weeks were a blur of guilt and pain. Maya tried to do everything she could to salvage her marriage, but it was clear that David couldn't look at her the same way. Every attempt at reconciliation felt empty, and the silence between them grew louder with each passing day. She continued seeing Michael, but the thrill of their secret meetings had dulled. The weight of the betrayal she had inflicted on David haunted her every time they were together. She had chosen Michael, but she realized that the price of this love was far higher than she had anticipated. The love she had for him couldn't heal the damage she had done to her marriage. One evening, Michael reached out to her, sensing her unease. Something's changed, he said. You're not the same. You're carrying too much guilt, Maya. We can't keep doing this if it's going to hurt you like this. The truth hit her then. She couldn't have both. She couldn't keep living in two worlds. The life she had with Michael was built on a foundation of lies, and it was eroding her sense of self. The passion they shared, the love that had seemed so perfect at the start, was now filled with shadows, shadows that loomed over her every decision. Maybe we both need to move on, Maya said softly, her voice tinged with sadness. I've hurt too many people already. I need to figure out who I really am, without all of this weighing me down. Michael remained silent for a moment, and when he finally spoke, his voice was gentle. I understand, Maya. I want what's best for you. But you need to find peace with yourself first. If that means letting go, then I'll respect that. And so, Maya made the hardest decision of all. She decided to walk away from Michael, from the affair, from the passion that had once burned so brightly. It wasn't easy, but she knew that this was the only way to find herself again, to heal from the damage she had caused. The days after Maya made her decision to end things with Michael were filled with silence. The house felt emptier than it ever had before. She had no one to turn to, no one to confide in. Every decision she made now felt like a reminder of the life she had destroyed. The echoes of her affair reverberated in her mind, and no matter how hard she tried to move forward, the weight of it remained. David, despite his initial shock and pain, had stayed with her. He hadn't left, but the distance between them was palpable. He went about his days as if everything was fine, but Maya knew better. The intimacy that once defined their relationship was gone. The warmth in his eyes, the kindness, had been replaced by a guarded coldness that made Maya feel like a stranger in her own home. She tried, she really did. She tried to be the wife he deserved, to heal the wounds she had caused. But every attempt felt hollow. She knew that things could never go back to what they once were. She had betrayed him, and though he had forgiven her in words, he hadn't forgiven her in his heart. Days turned into weeks, and Maya continued to live in the limbo of uncertainty. She could see David was trying to be patient, but the emotional gap between them was growing with every passing day. They no longer shared the simple joys of companionship. The quiet moments they once enjoyed together, sipping coffee in the mornings, talking about their day, had all but disappeared. Instead, there were empty spaces filled with forced politeness and awkward silences. Maya knew she had broken something irrevocable between them. The connection they had was gone, replaced by a painful distance that neither of them knew how to close. One evening, after dinner, David spoke up, his voice unusually firm. "Maya, we need to talk." She nodded, the familiar sense of dread rising in her chest. It was becoming clear that their conversations had taken a serious turn, and she feared what was coming. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," David continued, his gaze steady on her. "I know you've apologized, and I know you're trying to make things right. But I can't keep pretending that everything is okay." Maya felt her heart sink. This was the moment. She had known it was coming. David took a deep breath before continuing. "I've spent the past few weeks wondering if I can truly forgive you. Wondering if I can trust you again. And I've come to the conclusion that I can't. Not like this. Not anymore." Maya's stomach dropped, and for a moment, she couldn't speak. The words felt like a punch in the gut. She had been preparing herself for this, but nothing could have prepared her for the finality in David's voice. "I don't want to leave you, Maya," David said quietly, almost as if he was saying it to himself. "But I don't think we can keep living like this. I need to move on, and I need you to decide if you want to try to rebuild this, or if we're at the end." Tears welled in Maya's eyes, but she couldn't bring herself to cry. She had caused this. She had made this impossible. She had betrayed him, and now, all she had left was the mess she had created. "I don't want to lose you, David," she whispered, her voice trembling. "But I can't undo what I've done." He stood up, his expression soft but filled with the weight of his decision. "I know. And I think that's the problem. We can't go back, Maya. Maybe we never should have." With that, he turned and walked out of the room, leaving Maya alone with the wreckage of her choices. The days that followed were filled with an unbearable loneliness. Maya tried to keep her life together for the sake of their daughter, Emily, who had noticed the change between her parents. Emily had always been a perceptive child, and now she was quiet, withdrawn. Maya couldn't help but feel that her actions had not only torn apart her marriage but had also affected her daughter in ways she hadn't anticipated. Maya's attempts to be a good mother were overshadowed by the guilt and regret that consumed her. She couldn't talk to David about the pain she was feeling. She couldn't reach out to Michael, not after everything that had happened. He was no longer a part of her life, and she knew that. But she missed him, missed the intensity of their connection. Even though she knew it had been wrong. It was as if she were standing in the ruins of her own life, with no way to rebuild it. She found herself walking aimlessly through the house, unable to settle. At night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she could ever find peace again. She had shattered everything, her marriage, her self-respect, and the trust of the people she loved. Every decision had led her to this point, and now she was left to deal with the consequences. Several weeks later, things had settled into a routine of sorts. Maya and David had agreed to attend therapy together, though Maya could see that David was there out of a sense of obligation rather than hope. Their conversations were stiff, awkward, and filled with unspoken emotions. But as difficult as it was the first step toward healing. Maya had to accept that things wouldn't be the same again, that the life she had once known was gone. One day, after a particularly grueling therapy session, Maya returned home to find David sitting on the couch, waiting for her. For the first time in weeks, he looked at her with something other than cold indifference. "I've been thinking a lot," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I don't know if we can ever go back to how things were, but I do want to try. I'm willing to start over. If you are." Maya's heart fluttered. She had never imagined this moment would come. She had thought that David would never look at her the same way again, that their relationship was doomed. But here he was, offering her a chance to rebuild. "I don't know how to fix this," Maya said softly. "But I want to try too. I don't want to lose you, David." He nodded, his expression softening. "Then we'll figure it out together. Slowly. But we have to be honest with each other from now on. No more secrets." Maya took a deep breath, feeling a small glimmer of hope. It wouldn't be easy. It would take time, effort, and patience. But for the first time in a long while, she felt like she had a chance to rebuild her life, to rebuild the trust and connection with David. She didn't know what the future held. But for the first time, she was willing to face it, knowing that whatever happened, she had learned the hardest lesson of all: love, when it's true, requires more than just passion. It requires commitment, honesty, and the willingness to make it work. The weeks following Maya's heartfelt conversation with David were filled with a painful but necessary reconciliation process. The therapy sessions became a regular part of their lives. Maya was committed to putting in the effort to heal the damage she had done, and for the first time, she could sense a faint shift between them. David, though still distant at times, was showing signs of trust and effort to rebuild the bond they had once shared. There were no magical moments. No instant fixes. It was hard work. But slowly, the cracks that had fractured their relationship began to fill in, and Maya could sense that David was letting her back into his heart. One night, after dinner, David asked Maya if they could sit together. He had been quieter than usual, and Maya knew he was processing everything at his own pace. "I've been thinking a lot," David began, his voice steady but filled with an emotion Maya couldn't quite place. "I know this is hard for both of us, and I've been asking myself whether I can forgive you completely. I want to, Maya. I really do. But I need to know, do you truly want to fix this? Do you want to rebuild with me?" The question was simple, but the weight behind it was heavy. It wasn't just a question of whether Maya wanted to stay with David, it was whether she had learned from her mistakes, whether she was willing to accept the consequences of her actions and move forward. Maya took a deep breath, her mind filled with the moments of guilt and regret, but also the realization that she still had the chance to choose. She had already lost so much, her marriage, her own sense of self-worth, but David was still willing to try. "Yes," Maya said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "I want to fix this. I want to rebuild our life together. I've made mistakes, terrible ones, but I love you, David. And I don't want to lose you." David met her gaze, his expression softening. There was a long silence between them, the kind that carried 1,000 unspoken words. Finally, he nodded, the faintest of smiles tugging at his lips. "Then let's rebuild. Slowly, but together," he said, taking her hand in his. "We've both hurt each other, but maybe this is our chance to start fresh." In the months that followed, Maya and David worked hard to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. It wasn't easy, there were days filled with uncertainty and doubt. Days when the weight of the past felt unbearable. But as they worked together, they began to heal. They shared their feelings, their regrets, and slowly, they learned to love each other again, not with the same intensity they had in the beginning, but with a deeper, more mature understanding of what it meant to love and be loved. Maya also learned to forgive herself. It was a long, difficult process. There were nights when she would lie awake, thinking about Michael, about the affair, about the mistakes she had made. But each time, she reminded herself that she couldn't change the past. What mattered now was what she did with the present and how she moved forward. David never completely forgot what Maya had done. He couldn't, and she didn't expect him to. But what mattered was that they were both willing to try again, to put in the effort, and to make it work, even when it seemed impossible. Maya began to focus on herself too. She reconnected with the parts of her that she had neglected, her passions, her dreams, and her sense of independence. She realized that while love was important, it was also essential to find balance within herself. She began pursuing her career with new energy, rediscovering the woman she had been before she became consumed by guilt and shame. As the months passed, Maya and David grew closer. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was built on a foundation of honesty, vulnerability, and shared commitment. They had learned to trust each other again, even when the past haunted them. And through it all, Maya found peace not in forgetting the mistakes she had made, but in accepting them and working toward a better future. The affair with Michael became a distant memory, one she no longer allowed to define her. It was a part of her past, something that shaped her but no longer controlled her. She had made mistakes, but she had learned from them. And she had found a way to rebuild the love she had once lost with David. One evening, as they sat on the porch, watching the sun set together, Maya took David's hand in hers. The silence between them was comfortable now. No longer filled with the weight of unspoken words. "Do you think we're getting better?" Maya asked, her voice quiet but hopeful. David squeezed her hand gently, a small smile playing on his lips. "I do. It's not perfect, but we're here, aren't we?" Maya smiled back, her heart lighter than it had been in years. "Yeah, we're here." And for the first time in a long while, Maya felt like she was truly home.